Hello, everybody, and welcome to this online conference organized by Alliance Française Bangkok in partnership with the CNRS, the French National Center for Scientific Research, represented today by Serge Morand, the French ecologist and evolutionary biologist research director of CNRS and CIRAD, the CIRAD being, by the way, the French Agricultural Research Center for International Development. We also have today the Research Institute for Development, represented by Vincent Herbreteau, who is a health geographer and researcher at the IRD, and the University Mahidol, represented today by Kun Kitikong Chaisiri from the Faculty of Tropical Medicine at Mahidol University. Well, today is an important day because, as some of you may know, and I guess you all know that since you are here online, it's the World Environment Day. And we really wanted to organize an event linked with this topic, because the Alliance Française is not only about teaching French courses or cultural activities. It's also a place where we want to have people exchanging thoughts, exchanging ideas about our times. It can be about like ecology. It can be also about human rights. It can be about so many topics that we want to share with you, both in French and in English, sometimes to open it widely. It was important for us to organize this conference also because we want to keep being active online, since the Alliance is for the moment closed due to the measure taken by the government because of the COVID situation. And no matter what, we want to continue with you to share like interesting talks on topics that are very important in nowadays. So once again, I would like to thank the researcher today who will share their thoughts and idea about biodiversity, which is a very, and the link with the biodiversity and the human life on Earth, and how the two are interconnected. And of course, our responsibility toward this environment that's the healthy place we need to keep and maintain for ourselves and our children. So thanks again for being there online. Thanks for the partners. Thanks for the researcher. And please have a nice conference.
Good evening, everyone. I would like to thank Alliance Française de Bangkok to organize this event together with Mahidol University and different French research institutes. It's a good opportunity for us to discuss about biodiversity and health, and also of our researches. The relationships between biodiversity and health was probably not an evidence for most of us some years ago, but I'm sure now most of you are already aware of the importance of biodiversity to preserve health. When we speak about health, and today we will not speak only about human health, but also about animal health and ecosystem health. And Serge will introduce this important concept today of global health and One Health. First, I will speak a little about what is biodiversity. It is defined as a biological variety and variability of life on Earth. It includes plants, animals, but also fungi, bacteria, and humans, of course, among other animals. We consider different levels of biodiversity, from the genetic level, the species, and also ecosystem. To give some figures, estimates, and we'll speak again, it's difficult to have estimates, but it's about 9 million species of plants and animals in existence, but probably about 1.2 million have only been identified so far, most of them being insects. Also, we can say that biodiversity is richer when we are closer to the equator, so in the tropics. To give you also a figure, 10% of the Earth are covered by tropical forest ecosystems. But this ecosystem, 10% of the cover, hosts about 90% of the world species. And in Thailand and in Southeast Asia, we are in what we call a hotspot of biodiversity. This hotspot is named Indo-Burma. It's quite large. It depends on the scale also. We think of the hotspot, but there have been several large mammals discovered during the last 30 years, like the Saola in the Annamese Mountains between Laos and Vietnam. But also, and Saola is one of them, lot of species are threatened and we'll speak about that, by different threat on biodiversity, climate. So you know also that all these species work together to survive and maintain their ecosystem. But this equilibrium is threatened, and mainly by human activities with an increasing rate. We can classify this threat in 5 categories. The changes in land use and land cover. So, for instance, deforestation, urbanization. Also the exploitation of ecosystem, species, habitats. Also the invasive species, which is a major problem. And finally, pollution and climate changes. So climate changes in terms of increasing temperatures, but also the increasing occurrence of extreme events, as we observe also in increasing rate, the drought occurring during what should be the rainy season, or heavy rainfall, typhoons, and flash floods. So what we observe is that the rise is increasing fast during the last decades. And estimate also say that half of all species on Earth will be wiped out within the next century. The second observation is that pandemics are also becoming more frequent. Serge will develop on that, we will ask him, but 70% of emerging disease, like, you know, SARS, some years ago, the severe acute respiratory syndrome, Zika, Ebola in Africa, and all known pandemics like influenza, COVID, have emerged from animals. In the 20th century, we think of the great influenza in 1918. There were the HIV pandemic in 1981. And the rate increased with the bird flu in 97. And in this century, we had SARS, swine flu in 2009, H1N1, the MERS, Middle East Respiratory Syndrome in 2012, Ebola also in Africa in 2014, and COVID-19 in 2019. So obviously, we have a parallel in these two phenomena. We realize now the consequences could be terrible, both in terms of health, for societies, families, individuals. We can observe here in Asia the consequences, the social consequences or economic cost of these pandemics. And also, as a scientist, we have also some solution, and we also know that prevention strategies cost less than pandemics. So this is a situation in terms of biodiversity loss and increasing risk of pandemics, but I did not give you any detail on the mechanism. And I will ask Serge to explain us how biodiversity loss favor the emergence of infectious diseases. And first, Serge, before you answer my question, we we have prepared together 3 quiz along this discussion, and I will ask the first quiz question for the audience. So for the people who are connected on Zoom, you will be able to answer. The first question is, how many viruses from mammals and birds could have the possibility to infect humans? First answer, less than 500. Second answer, between 10,000 and 100,000. Last answer, over 500,000. So you have a few seconds to give us an answer. And I will let Serge later give the answer.
Okay. Thank you very much. Vincent, for this nice introduction, and thank you for the audience to give quite a good response, because more than half of you have given over than 500,000 viruses. Actually, we have described only 5,000 viruses. And we have only, like for the biodiversity that Vincent explained just before, some estimates of the current number of viruses. And the estimate is around 1.7 million of viruses and discovered and described in mammals, only in mammals on birds. And for them, several thousand could have the ability to infect humans. Actually, we have done a study like this because we investigated with Tonk and with Vincent along many years the rodents and their rodent-borne disease along the Mekong River and in Cambodia, Thailand, and Laos, and we collected rodents, and thanks with our colleagues from the Academy of Medicine of China, they were doing the viromes. They were investigating all the viruses that they can find in 3,500 individual rodents, and they found 500,000 viruses. So 500,000 viruses are circulating in rodents, at least along the Mekong River. And we, of course, found a lot of known pathogens of humans, like the hantaviruses, mammarena viruses, hepatitis viruses, coronaviruses, cowpox, a lot are maybe potentially emerging. But are they really a threat? Are they really dangerous for humans? And this is what we have to look on. The real response is really to try to understand how biodiversity and ecosystems are connected to explain emerging infectious disease. And this was not new because we have to remember several years ago, actually just after one of the pandemics and the swine flu in 2009, the WHO starting to work on the disease X, what they know. So they tried to see what kind of disease could emerge from which animals, which pathogens, and that can cause future epidemics and potentially from where. So they make a blueprint of this disease. Actually, they said that potentially it was influenza viruses or potentially coronaviruses, but they were it's so difficult to predict all of this. But we have to understand that something also changed a lot to explain what's going on in terms of not only first epidemics, how it started, but how it spread. And we have to understand that the big change that have been around the last decades is the international connections, the global travel of goods and people. We have to imagine that we were less than around 300 million of people to take a plane in 1970. In 2019, before the crash, we were more than 4 billion passengers. 1 1,300% increase of passengers. And it's the same for the global trade of the freight. It's the same for the ship with the containers. It's the same with the train. So we move people, we move animals, we move plants all over the world. This explains that if something arrives locally, it could spread very easily globally. We have to imagine, for example, the emergence of the SARS-CoV-2. We know that it was a virus from a bat, so we are pretty sure. After, we don't know exactly how it's, if there is, which animals can be the intermediate host, how it's that, but we know that when it started and when it arrived, the local cluster arrived in a big hub like Wuhan, it spread all over the world in a few months. So a virus that was circulating in bats somewhere in south of China or northern of Southeast Asia, several months after, it was all over the world. It was something that it was impossible to imagine before. How to explain this now? Indeed, we have some ideas on, I think Vincent just before gave some very important clues about these factors that may explain. But the first factors is the increasing number of livestock, cattle, birds. For example, we can have this question, or maybe we can put this question. So how many birds on how many chickens are living on Earth? How many white birds on Earth? So we have a few seconds to reply of this. If you agree, so I can give the answer now. We are waiting for your response. So, wow, impressive again. So we have a very nice public that know very well what's going on. Effectively, the last estimation, because it's also an estimation, put the number of wild birds to 40 billion of wild birds. We have to know that in 1997, so less than 30 years ago, the estimate number was 200 billion. So we are really decreasing the number of birds worldwide. But if I ask you another question, how many chickens we are raising at the moment on Earth? I don't know if we are putting already this question to reply, but I can say to this, how many chickens? We have 30 billion of chickens. So if we counted the chickens, the ducks, the goose, everything, almost the number of poultry is like the number of wild birds. Now, taking the number of cattle, the head of cattle, at the moment, there is 1.6 billion of cattle. What is the weight of the cattle, of all of these cattle, all of this biomass? The weight is heavier than the weight of all of humans. So we have to say that it's not a planet dominated by humans, it's a planet dominated by livestock and poultry. And for this, we have to imagine that they are mostly the big amplifiers of many emerging or many past emerging diseases on disease. Look, for example, at the avian influenza. Yes, the viruses are originating from the wildlife, but who are the amplifiers? Where the recombination of the virus occurs? Where these viruses starting to be of threatened for the humans? From the poultry, for the pigs also, where the avian, the swine flu emerged from the poultry, from the pig sectors. We have also a lot of examples for the bad viruses that were emerging actually by the livestock. Andra in Australia, it was horse. Nipah in Malaysia, it was pig. MERS in Middle East, it was camels. And we have several also examples of coronavirus from bats that were emerging through the cattle or through the pigs. So all of this, and because of this increase of this livestock, we need to have land for this livestock, and we need to feed this livestock. So for feeding these livestock, we are transforming a lot of our landscape, and we're changing the landscape, either, for example, here in Southeast Asia, growing corn. The corn is not, people here are not eating polenta, like in Mexico. They are not eating the corn. We are growing corns to feed the poultry and the pigs. And with this impact, these have a big impact also on the ecosystem, on changing the biodiversity. And how to explain finally this changing? How finally we lost species, but why? Because we lost species, we lost finally something that is very important in terms of the disease. We lost the regulation of disease transmission. When we have a lot of species in a place, what we have a lot of microbes, of viruses, for sure. They are there. There is a good relationship. Microbes, bacteria, and viruses are also biodiversity. They are linking. But when we look and when we investigate it in the field, we found a very low prevalence. Very few animals are infected. Actually, sometimes it's very difficult to find some viruses. If you check to find Ebola in bats, for example, in Africa, or even some Ebola like in Asia, or even the Nipah viruses, the prevalence is very, very low, very low. But why? Because there is several important aspects of the biodiversity, because biodiversity is not only the number of species, it is interaction. It is, for example, predation. So the predators can control that prey on reservoirs or on vectors like the mosquitoes. If you lost the predators, you lost this important regulation of predators. So the prey, the reservoir, just getting better. They increase, and if they increase in number, in density, they also favor the transmission of their microbes and parasites. So, and we lost also, if we simplify the habitat, so we have more, I would say, human-dominated habitats simplified. So not only because we lost forest, but we lost a traditional way of maintaining the diversity of the agricultural landscape with different kind of things. But for example, along the urbanization or along intensification of agriculture, we lost also a lot of species that are specialists of some kinds of habitat, and we favor what we name the generalist species, the species that really like the humans, like the rats, for example, or like the mosquitoes, and they are increasing also in density, favoring. This is one aspect of this. Biodiversity means regulation, and regulation is an important aspect of ecosystem health. This is the healthy ecosystem which is regulated for the climate, for the water, for the air, but is also the regulation of the bacteria and virus transmission. Linking, losing this ecosystem service of regulation of disease, meaning that we increase the risk of humans to be affected. So how we do now, we're starting to, of course, to try to find a solution. And one solution is, as also mentioned by Vincent, is the One Health. What is the One Health? But it's a long way to think. It's not new. The One Health emerged as a one medicine. One veterinarian and physician thinks that, okay, many diseases, we have to work together for the health of both of livestock and humans. Or, for example, take the rabies. The rabies is a problem, a huge problem, but it can really easily tackle if we vaccinate the dogs. So it means that this is really a one medicine. But the One Health starting really in 2009 or 2004, when there was a big meeting in Manhattan by the WCS, and they invited many people, including people for the international organization, on putting the term one world, one health. If we have one world, we should have one health. If you protect the biodiversity, you will also reduce the risk of emergence of transfer. This after finalized into a new One Health tripartite in 2008, not very far in Vietnam. They agree on this. The WHO, the World Health Organization, the OAE, so the Organization of Animal Health, and the FAO, the Organization on Food and Agriculture. And they saying that, okay, we have to do better prevention, better surveillance, better capacity to respond really to the problem. Of course, as we have really, they recognize that they have failed. The COVID-19 showed that it was not enough only to have this free organization. We should have more in the environment. And we have this new tripartite, but now with the United Nations for the Environmental Program, the UNEP, that's starting to merge on that starting. And I will finish like this to say that if we want to have healthy communities, that Tonk will explain after, we need to have healthy livestock, healthy poultry. We need to have healthy ecosystem, healthy landscape. And by working on the environment, on the healthy, we can resolve this aspect. So I will stop this and I take only my 15 minutes just in time. And I will go now to Vincent, because Vincent's work a lot as a geographer, health geographer. He works in Cambodia now for several years on investigating the deforestation, and his link to biodiversity loss, sure, but also to emerging infectious disease, sometimes also that is neglected tropical disease. And maybe Vincent, you can explain how and what is your work and how you can, what you are doing have really implications for the public health.
Thank you, Serge. So yes, we are working on monitoring the environment, studying the change in the land use, land covers, and try to estimate also biodiversity. So deforestation is a main major observation that may be quite easy sometimes or not to do. And maybe I will explain it's not so easy. So the forest represents a lot of surface on Earth. It's a third of the Earth, but forests are very different. You meet forest here, then it can be dense or sparse. And deforestation is also quite different from one country to another. It could be clear cuts, as we have seen in Asia, to switch from forest to agriculture for the need of crops, for plantation. We have the example of palm trees plantation, maybe more in Indonesia, but here also in Cambodia. Plantation of teak trees in northern Thailand, Laos also. But deforestation, it can be also when we cut a high-value tree in the middle of the forest. And I think now in the area, forests that are not protected, there are not so much high-value trees. And this is very difficult to measure. Even behind, there are some people going deep in the forest, looking for the trees and pulling this tree out of the forest. And these people are highly exposed to a new pathogen, and they will also spread or bring this pathogen out of the forest. So I will speak about the study of forest and disease beyond. I used to work also in Thailand, and I remember 20 years ago, I went to the Royal Forest Department. They have on the wall a huge map made by hand and by a lot of field observation from the foresters all over the country. And this map showed that in the middle of the 19th century, Thailand was covered for 95% of the territory by forested areas. It could be primary forest or not, but 95%, it was a forested country. In the mid of the 20th century, it decreased to 50%. And now the forest cover is about 39%, but it depends also what we include in this figure. For a more precise figure, we know that 13% of Thailand is covered by primary forest. That means forests which will have a high biodiversity of animals, for example. So this figure was in 2015. There are still some losses in the forest, but it's quite reduced now in Thailand compared to Cambodia or other neighboring country where the deforestation could be higher. For the last 20 years, the loss in Thailand was 2%, mostly in the south, and there is also some gain of forest in northeast and other areas. So we will speak, and maybe Ajantong will speak about that, but there is a great chance in Thailand because there are a lot of protected areas, and this is a huge chance for the country. So to measure deforestation in the forest cover, we use satellites, Earth observation satellites. The first satellites were launched in the 1970s. So that means that we have 50 years of data, but before that, it's very difficult to know what was the forest cover. The first program in the 70s was the American program with the Landsat satellites. They were followed with the Spot program in France and Europe. And I would like also to mention, that you may know that there is a Thai spatial agency, very active, called GISDA, G-I-S-D-D-A. And Thailand launched Earth observation satellite in 2008. So it's the end of life of this one, but there will be a second one. So the difficulties to measure forest and deforestation are in the difference of the quality of the images from the 70s to nowadays. You can imagine that the resolution, spatial resolution, has increased. In the 70s and 80s, the pixel, like in a photography, the pixel representing the ground, it represents 20 or 30 meters. And now we are at a few meters or less than 1 meter. When you see an image in Google Earth, for example, it is less than 1 meter. So it's quite difficult for us to compare, but we still do this work. We have worked with Serge some years ago, so in this project on biodiversity and health, focus on rodents. And there was a part of the study in Cambodia, in Mondulkiri province. So this province has been highly affected. It was covered, we measured from the satellite image in 1988, there were 91% of forest, and it was reduced by half today, 48% in 2018. This work that we have done some years ago has been recently updated at Institut Pasteur du Cambodge for a project on malaria by Anaïs Pepe, PhD student in Cambodia. But as I said before, this rough view, important view, we can give some figures on the phenomena, but we are missing some more details on the trees and more precision. What we can say also, it's not the cover that is important, but the way the deforestation occurs. And one focus for us in our researches is to describe what we call the fragmentation, because it's sometimes not a massive cut of the forest, but some small places that are cut progressively. And all these these fragments that disappear inside the forest are places that increase the transmission of pathogen from the forest to the people coming here. People can bring also some pathogen to the forest, a mix of animals, and it's a mix of pathogens. And the immunity also of the population coming here is not prepared sometimes. Another example, I'm thinking of Myanmar. We are also collaborating with Mahidol University and the team of the Choklo Malaria Research Unit in Mesot to build a surveillance system. And we have worked on satellite images some years ago, and there are some places with mining activities. These places are also of high risk of emergence of disease because of this question of immunity population coming here in these areas and in contact with new pathogens. So now the question is, what are the solutions to prevent pandemics? And we will go back to Thailand, and we will ask Ajahn Tong, what is your opinion about biodiversity conservation and health in the Thai community?
All right, thank you, Vincent and Ajahn Sech. Yeah, regarding to the biodiversity and health in Thai communities, yes, as we all know, biodiversity is like a kind of fundamental for our well-being. Yeah, for example, this support like food security status as well, can be a kind of like source of traditional medicines and also playing really important role, as Ajahn Sech mentioned before, on the regulation of emerging infectious disease, for example. So biodiversity playing a really important role in this case, and really impact and affect directly to the human health and also animal health around us as well. So in my opinion, realization on the importance of biodiversity or maybe conservation comes from the core concept or perception on the community awareness mind, I think. So you have to think and realize about the other person, the other organisms around you. So biodiversity and ecological knowledge are not just known only among us as researchers and academic sectors, for example, but at the local communities level as well. This kind of perception is also accumulated and passed from generation to generation through like traditional wisdom. They do their own traditional style of agriculture, for example. No any like buffalo engine like at the moment, and also local ecological knowledge as well that they realize and they have in their own perceptions for a long time. So surely, I think local communities realize about the core principle that all organisms are connected. Any change can happen and in turn affect the other as well and cause consequences, as we have seen some in emerging disease at the moment. So this is proven by my own impression as well as some Thai, and when I was young, a local Thai society in the past, like we have like community awareness, the people full with support and respect each other, and importantly, trust the other. So although today, it is sadly that maybe these things are fading away due to like modernized economical value that we put, and also people tend to be more individualism at the moment. So I think if we want to achieve the goal of the sustainable on the biodiversity and community well-being, I think it is important now to promote community awareness and finely tune between the two sectors. It's not only the knowledge from the academic side or the researcher, but also the perception and the local wisdom from the local communities as well, to be better communicate between us and also support each others as well. So I think allowing villagers to fully participate, villagers, communities can maybe even leading some conservation process or project. That will be the goal ideal for answer these questions. Yeah.
So Ajahn Tong, we have a third quiz question for the audience. Maybe it's time to make the audience participating. What is the extent of protected areas in Thailand? Is it 4% of the territory, 9%, 19%, or more than 50% of the territory? You have a few seconds to answer. And
Right, quite nice. Huh? Really good answer. Our audience got really nice knowledge as well. So I will summarize a bit. Like as we know that the protected area in Thailand in 2020 this year. So the estimation is at around 19%. This including the area preserved by the Royal Forestry National Park mainly, and wildlife sanctuary areas as well. That's distributed around and throughout the countries. Yeah.
Thank you, Ajahn Tong. I think the audience would be also happy to know about your ongoing or planned activities now in biodiversity and health in Thailand. Could you tell us more about that?
Right. Yeah. First, I think I will go with the roughly view of many organizations and also for the Thailand itself as well. That what kind of biodiversity project. Yeah. So Thailand, of course, we are not really absolutely perfect in managing this issue. Of course, we still see some several negative aspects as well in terms of how we manage and cope up with this biodiversity issue. But I would rather emphasize this in terms of maybe more positive aspect, to be more like inspirational as well for our future steps. Yeah, to walk together rather than to blame the people. Yeah. So I think we as the community, I mean, like joint contribution and initiations projects among government, public enterprises, NGOs, or together with some like a local communities involvement as well. I think we are not doing bad. We are doing quite okay to cope with current situation at the moment. The government knows that we are facing an increasing of like environmental degradations problem, biodiversity loss problem, which will in turn affect like largely on socio-economic development and also depletion of natural resources in the long run. So according to this, Thailand National Assembly has developed a long-term planning for the next 20 years with environmental friendly development, or we call green growth campaign. So they planned to enhance the biodiversity conservation through several activities and projects via the multiple ministry, yeah, by aiming to increase like the forest and green areas according to their statement up to 40%. Yeah, so this is the already announced for the next 20 years plan. As well as like not only the terrestrial forest, but also increasing the significant amount of like mangrove seagrasses, coral reef in marine ecosystems as well. Yeah, this is the long-term plan for the national level. Also, there are like several biodiversity conservation projects that currently running today. Among these, it's not only my own project, but I have experienced some of interesting projects and collaborations carried by public or private organizations, universities involvement, and also, of course, local communities as well. Yeah, for example, I would like to raise one interesting project on a success story of an endangered species, the Sarus crane reintroduction and conservation project. This bird species is realized as one of the tallest flying bird species. The species occur in many countries, South Asia, like in India as well, Southeast Asia, many countries in Thailand, and also present in the north of Australia. So the species was believed to be extinct from wild in Thailand since around 1980, something like this, due to, of course, as we know, the problem of their habitat loss, toxicity from the intensive agriculture, using of many pesticides, for example. So only population that survive is in captivity in the zoo. And thanks to Zoological Park Organization, or CPO, so they succeed to breed them in the captivity and try reintroduce population back to the wild. So the project is in collaboration, of course, with also Department of National Park, Ministry of Natural Resources and Environment, and also with the NGO, the BCST, the Bird Conservation Society of Thailand, along with the local administrations like Oboto in Buriram province or Obojo in Buriram province as well, where you have the local farmers, the local owner of the paddy field, rice field. So the idea is like any rice fields that are impacted by the bird nesting or bird feeding behavior, so the owner agreed to help along by using the chemical-free rice farming practice, and they could receive also proper compensation in case of if they're lacking in their rice productions. Yeah. On the top of that, also their organic high-quality jasmine rice is also branded as the Sarus crane rice. So this representing a nice story of like sustainable conservation, local involvement, and also cooperation of all agencies involved, all level in the area as well. So that is one example. Another example is the project that run by the Wildlife Research Division at DNP, or the Department of National Park. They conduct really nice long-term project monitoring of like local species and migratory species of birds on the population change and also the potential roles in carrying some disease which can transmit to human. For example, they have a project to survey avian influenza and also some other infectious disease that may carried by the bird as well. So they have a great expertise, also great research facilities and full experienced team to conduct this kind of research. For example, they have the research station at Bung Borapet non-hunting area in Nakhon Sawan province, one of the largest freshwater reservoir in Thailand, and also a really good place for a bird watching, particular if you are interested by the group of water bird. They have continued this kind of long-term monitoring on the bird populations for more than 20 years. And you can see the series of data as well, how fascinating of this kind of long term. So thanks to the DNP team and update data. So sadly, we recently observed the trend of the reduction in both abundance and also the species richness of birds in Bung Borapet along the period of 20 years. And this needs urgent reactions to respond as well in terms of biodiversity loss as the bird as the model in the study. So you can see that this kind of longitudinal data we really need, and it's really important as well for the further conservation planning in the future. Yeah, that is the projects that run by the other organizations. For example, I can carry on to the next part about our own experience. Yeah, in the field. In this case, I will raise an example of one project or one health project that we are currently running. We have a great opportunities to do this research project, thanks to Professor Serge Morand and also the support from the French organization as well to running this kind of interesting project we call Future Health C, or Future Health in Southeast Asia. Yeah. So this bringing together biodiversity and health study covering the three domain interfaces of One Health. So first, environment, human and also animals. And in this project also we include domestic animals, which is living around human, like cats, dogs, livestock, and also wildlife. We can use like rodents as the wildlife representative to see the interactions. So the project is running in a very local scale at a sub-district level of Nan province, with of course collaboration of the local communities, 8 villages altogether. Obator involved there, or sub-district administration organizations in English, local public health offices, local livestock offices as well, that because we work with animal, so they provide some veterinary support as well to work together. And also apart from this, we have agricultural departments that work closely, and also we have the researchers and academic staff from several Thai universities, for example, like Mahidol, Chulalongkorn, Kasetsart as well. So yeah, so in the project, so we tackle the biodiversity and health questions through monitoring biodiversity in the area under the aspect of land use change due to the urbanization and also agricultural activities as well. We assess the human and animal health via the 3 main health aspects or health parameters, including the infectious disease, agricultural toxicology, and also antimicrobial resistance, the issues. So infectious disease, for example, we assess or we investigate the status of selected disease, for example, like dengue fever transmitted by mosquito, leptospirosis, where we know that, okay, reservoir, maybe rats act as the reservoir, but also some other livestock as well. And also some other vector-borne disease, like transmitted by bite of the arthropod vector, like scrub typhus. And also we have like really mild or low impact disease, like parasitic infections in human and animals as well. That is in terms of infectious disease. We have agricultural toxicology. For example, we study the pesticide residue in human and animal bloods, and also the local perception in pesticide usage for their agricultural practices as well among the local villagers. And also in terms of antimicrobial resistance, group of antibiotic resistant bacteria in farm animals, like Ajahn Serge mentioned before, in poultry and in pigs farms that dominate as a big, huge number of animals around us. And also we look at antimicrobial resistance as well in the human, which is the owners or either workers in the farms as well. So we found some antimicrobial resistant interactions and link between the animal and human. So also we assess the biodiversity data in the study area in different areas of the sub-district as well. For example, some village located in the lowland floodplain close to the city, the landscape is more urbanized, more close to the city, the people more well-being, while some other villages located on the upland landscape close to the protected area or close to the secondary forest in the national park, for example. So this allows us to see some associations or correlation between the biodiversity in the area and also the health parameters that I mentioned before. So this kind of result and observatory outcomes are translated and informed back to the local communities by storytelling and also via the predictive scenarios for their decision when they have to plan for their development in terms of socio-economic development following their own livelihood context in the area, for example. So for us, we are the researcher or academic staff. We are, of course, external observer, and also we provide some supporter as well. But any decision for their local development should be mainly in their hand, in their community commitment, rather than our opinions. So that is the idea, for ongoing project at the moment.
Thank you very much, Ajahn Tony. Very interesting and full of hope for the future.
Yeah.
So just to conclude today, the World Environment Day initiative under the United Nations Environment Program, we understand that human activities that are driving also biodiversity loss, climate change are also affecting us, increasing the risk of pandemics. We have to rethink the way we are using our natural resources, our environment. And as you drive this project in Thailand to focus on conservation efforts, preserve biodiversity, protect endangered species and their habitats, and also protect our health. I would like just to share the given message from the World Environment Day. There is 3 words: reimagine, recreate, and restore. And I will just cite what they say for today. This is our moment. We cannot turn back time. We can grow trees, green our cities, rewild our gardens, change our diets, and clean up rivers and coasts. We are the generation that can make peace with nature. Let's get active, not anxious. Let's be bold, not timid. That's the citation that you can find on the page. There is a web page, interesting web page. So we have a few minutes now to answer your questions on biodiversity, health, emergence of disease, and it's opportunity to discuss with 3 researchers here. So please, the floor is yours. You can, I guess, write the question in Zoom for those connected. Yes.
There is one person that just raised his...
Okay, Mr. Bernard, please, if you can. Yeah.
Oui, bonjour, merci pour cette présentation très, très intéressante, même si elle était en anglais. J'aurais pas une question, mais plutôt un commentaire général. En fait, vous venez de dire que la biodiversité était menacée par deux faits principaux. Maybe I should do it in English, sorry. You just said that biodiversity is threatened by 2 main factors. The first one, as I understood, is the number of people on Earth. And the second one is the way they are eating. So in other words, there are too many people on Earth and they are eating too much, if I make it short. Unfortunately, our system, actual system and present system is encouraging the 2 main factors of human being, which is to preserve his life by eating and by making sure that he's having as many children as possible. Because the system, the present system, is encouraging, please consume as much as you can. And of course, as many, if there are many consumers, that's very good because you are making money. So what I mean is that the present system and the fact that actually we are threatening the Earth is not too good, as you mentioned. And maybe it's a really time to change, I don't know the word, but maybe that's the same, to change a paradigm and to change our way of living and thinking, and maybe to put a priority on human being, on nature, rather than on money. Because that was not a question.
Thank you very much.
Yes, you can also ask the question directly on the chat. So there is a question from Isabel. How can I help Thailand get on the change? Which groups or organizations should I contact? So maybe a question for Ajahn Tong.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Actually, I think we have both government organizations and also the NGO as well, which is, for example, you have many NGO available running that nice project at the moment. For example, BCST, Bird Conservation Society of Thailand, and also the Green World Foundation, which already established for, I think, more than 30 years at the moment that they are currently running. Quite nice. And I think they urgently need support as well comparing to the government. Yeah, I think government, they have their own plans and also calculated budget every year. Yeah, I think in terms of support, I think NGO is quite nice as well to approach in this case. Thank you very much for as well for these initiations. And also we have some other foundation and organization that I didn't mention a lot as well. Thanks.
So please, Ajahn Tong, if you can write the names on the chat.
Of course, yes, I will write the name in the chat.
Right. So it's already 7 p.m. we have spoke a lot. If you don't have any more questions, still time maybe for last question in the chat or on the Zoom directly. Otherwise, we will let Mr. Director to conclude and close this event.
Thank you very much, Vincent and Ajahn Tong, for I think that you ask, we have the chance to have both of you today to be very entertaining. Okay.
Well, dear Serge, dear Vincent, dear Kittipong, thank you for this fascinating talk, accessible, clear, and I would say even thrilling in a way, because talking about biodiversity is also talking about how we behave ourselves, not only as individuals, but also as communities, and how we behave towards our environments and the consequences of our daily habits on these environments, and its importance for us, which is basically like everything is interconnected, just like you mentioned. And so this is why sometimes we have to be aware that what we're doing has an impact at the other bottom of the line, and it has an impact, it will have an impact on us in the end. So this is why I want like also to say that we should all realize how our daily choices can impact because of the economical growth, because of the productivity, because of certain type of agriculture or farming practice. And this is why our daily habits can have a strong impact. So thank you, Antoine. This is why during the last 6 days before the conference, we published in partnership with the French collective Zéro Déchet, Zero Waste, small actions, daily actions that everybody can do to participate to this change that includes preserving biodiversity, but it's also about climate change. It's also about reducing the waste. So please go check the the website and the Facebook page and the Instagram of the Alliance Française, you will have those small daily actions that we can do, and it will be maybe like a small contribution that we can also think about. So once again, thank you to the collectif Zéro Déchet, and thank you to Marie-Françoise for organizing and putting that in form with very nice layouts. Thank you also to Antoine and Mallory for organizing this event and handling the technical aspects. The Alliance Française online continue. We'll see you next time for the Fête de la Musique. We'll try to come up with something special for you, so stay tuned and we'll keep you informed with a special program for the day of the Fête de la Musique, which should be on the 21st of June, but we will prepare something for the weekend before that. So if you want to listen to good music, stay with us. Thank you all. Thank you again, Serge, Vincent, Kitipong, and thank you for the people listening to us today. I wish you all a good weekend and a good World Environment Day. Goodbye.